for the full Sakian men who are going full Sakiavelli out on the world, who are not deterred and do not justify anything that they do to anybody. They just live in accordance to what they trust is right for the value of their own timeline. They're the ones who just have, if they're going to believe anything, it's going to be things and ways of being that are going to make them even more powerful than they already are. It's going to be believing in things that make them stronger. It's going to be believing in things that make them rise to their own ambitions. And the reason why the full Sakian man has everything working out for them is because what we as full Sakian men are about is we are about focus. We're about emotional awareness and the full Sakian timeline that moves and is oriented from timelessness. So I have this here that I made. We have the anxious, apathetic, and focused and determined timeline. So the anxious and depressed person is going to care too much about the wrong things. These are the beta gooners, okay? You're going to be on a beta gooner timeline if you're caring too much about the wrong things. Because if you care about being anxious or depressed, and you're putting so much of your attention and you're investing your attention into this, then of course you're not going to live the life that you want. Of course you're not going to be actually like living the life that you dream of. If you sit around and think to yourself, well, I'm not lucky, or if you say, I'm lucky. Now, I don't really think that that's a narrative structure that you want to project into the symbolic narrative field necessarily, but saying I am lucky is going to be thousands times of better than saying, "Ooh, I'm not lucky. I'm depressed. I'm anxious." Now, look, why would you? And here's the thing, right? These unhappy people are the same people who want to fight to ensure that you're doing things in a certain way. Meanwhile, I'm over here on this timeline. I'm focused, I'm determined, I'm building, I'm creating. And these people over here and here are trying to tell me who's here, who's got that look in his eyes, that glint of, yeah, I'm crazy, and you best believe I'm going to do anything to ensure that I'm either going to die trying to do what God, the soul of existence, has commanded me to do, or I'm going to actually achieve it. And these people over here, especially these types of people, are the ones that try to tell me the most. And I'm sure you can relate if you're a full Sakian man on a full Sakian timeline and a regal narrative structure. These people over here who are jealous and envious, they want to critique you. They want to make sure that, well, you're not getting too far ahead. Screw these people. Because they care too much about the wrong thing, and these are the beta gooners. Okay, now we go to the apathetic. You can see that this person they're not impressed with anything. They don't care at all. They lack care, and they're depleted Kumars. So these depleted Kumars are going to be the same ones that worship the Pink Palace. Okay? You have Pink Palace worshippers on both of these, in the anxious and the apathetic. But especially when it comes to the apathetic, they're going to be depleted Kumars to the max. Okay? They're going to be on a depleted Kumar timeline. Both of these narrative structures for the anxious / depressed and then the apathetic person, they're on high cost timelines that are low value, or they're on low cost timelines that are low value. Neither one of these are a high value timeline. This is where you have a high cost, high value timeline, or you have a low cost, high value timeline. High value timelines are only going to show up when you're focused, emotionally aware, And not necessarily you don't have to be a full Sakian man, but you have to have the mindset of a full Sakian man. Because if you're in a relationship, then of course, like, you know, you're gonna have. Like, I think that if you're in a relationship, you can, and you're in a mutual, you know, romantic relationship, and you want to have sex with that woman, you can have sex with her as much as you want. You know, if she wants to have sex with you, you can have sex with her as much as you want. Like, it doesn't matter. What matters is the mindset, okay? So these apathetic people are only going to be the crabs in the bucket. And so the reason why everything works out for the full Sakian man over here in this timeline is because he just trusts that it's going to work out. Nobody over here in these timelines are going to perceive life to be a certain way, where things can work out for them. Everything's working in their favor. They're not going to believe that. But the full Sakian man, he believes. If he believes anything, because me personally, I say that I don't really believe. I don't believe, I don't hope. Because for me, those are just wishful thinking. But if I'm going to believe or hope in anything, it's going to believe or hope in the things that are going to make me powerful. It's not going to be, and even then, like, I don't like to use those words for me specifically, because again, I don't feel anything with those words anymore. It's kind of like, you know, after a while, like certain things just don't have that zest to them anymore. And it's not because you used it too much, or it's because, you know, you forgot the value. It's just kind of, you move beyond it. There's something beyond, there's something deeper, something more true beneath it. That's kind of what it is. And so what I've determined is that I just am going to trust. I'm going to know that I trust in myself to create the kind of life that I want to create. Because imagine that, because God, the soul of existence, has given me a tremendous monumental task. And this task is requiring me to reshift how I think about things while showing other people how to revolutionize their psychology and spirituality. Through godlike mastery, through the Regal Academy, etc. So, with the godlike mastery, for example, the metrics that have decreased and increased the most are self-sabotage being the decreased, and the one that's increased is the pattern recognition. So everybody that has been in my godlike mastery offer, no matter how long they've been in there, has decreased the self-sabotage and increase their pattern recognition, no matter what. Now, with the Regal Academy, people have felt more supported, people felt more accountable, and people have felt more togetherness, even though it's online. You can't have these types of ways of being emanate from you unless these are systems to help you get out of systems. And that's exactly what I'm aiming to do, and that's why I'm doing what I'm doing. Is because I want to see more this in the world from men. I don't want to continue seeing when I have to. Do you know how crazy it is to walk around and see how many anxious, apathetic people, especially the dudes, are out and about? I mean, there's no life to them. There's no zest. There's no oomph, there's no passion, there's no creative faculties. They're basically sterile. You know, they've become sterilized. And it's like, well, why are you, like, don't you, like, here's the reason why. I think this is what it is. Because if you're comfortable being a degenerate, let's say, like if you're going to the club and you're dancing with all these hoes and, you know, all these SLUTs and, you know, whatever it is, maybe you're drinking a lot, you're doing certain kinds of drugs or whatever. And I'm not saying that you shouldn't do these things. I'm just saying, like, I don't drink. Number one, I don't drink. I haven't had a glass of wine for years. And who knows, that might change tomorrow. I doubt that. But it might change tomorrow, right? I do smoke tobacco, and I smoke tobacco maybe 2 or 3 times a week. And when I do, it's usually a shamanic ritual. In fact, there hasn't been a time in the last like 5 or 6 months that it hasn't been a shamanic ritual. It's always been a shamanic ritual. It's been part of, the deeper practice. Like, I speak to the tobacco leaves before I smoke it, and I speak to the tobacco spirit. Now, to some people, that might sound kind of crazy, but actually it's very grounding, and it's kind of like speaking to a tree or speaking to the river, asking for guidance or flow, or, rooting in the earth. And right now we're actually entering into Virgo, astrologically speaking. So what that means is that the sun is moving into Virgo now, which is an earth element, and it's more grounded and systematic in its approach to life. So it's going to be a little bit more logical, and we've just exited the Leo season, which is the season of fire, right? So we've it's been a very fiery, lion-esque type of month for the last month for a lot of people, and I definitely felt that aggression. But now it's not necessarily the stars that are influencing me. It's more like my observation of them, and it's more my observation of the world that's shifting. And something that I trust, like the reason why I am investing in astrology, for example, my attention into astrology, is because it's increasing my ability to be self-aware. It's become more of an archetypal tool to recognize certain patterns. Okay? Now, that's why I do it. I'm not saying you should do it. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it. But I trust that everything's working out for me, because I am a focused, emotionally aware, full Sakian man who's on a full Sakian timeline. I'm on a regal narrative structure, heading into timelessness. For those that are familiar with my regal timeline theory, the Regal Change old timers, you know exactly what I'm talking about. But if you're going to lack care, there's a difference between, because everybody on the path to enlightenment kind of starts to, and I'm not saying I'm enlightened or anything like that, but what I'm saying is that on the path to enlightenment, there are many forms of being in which are discussed, where, like, for example, before enlightenment, mountains are mountains. During enlightenment, mountains are no longer mountains. After enlightenment, the mountains become mountains again. It's kind of like that old saying as well. It's like before enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. After enlightenment, chop wood and carry water. There's a lot of wisdom in that. And a lot of people think that they get it intellectually, and they do get it intellectually, but they don't feel it in their heart. They don't really feel it, because if they did feel it in their heart, they would be emotionally moved to be uncomfortable. Now that's exactly where I'm getting at with this whole degenerate situation, right? People who can't quit corn, for example, the reason that they can't quit corn is because they don't have enough inspiration to do so. They just don't. They're not in spirit enough to see that it's causing them more harm than good, and so they don't care. That's the depleted Coomer. They don't care. They're just giving their energy to all these online energy vampires. They don't care. Why should they? I'm not saying they're wrong. I'm just saying that that's what it is. They don't care because they don't have an inspiration motive. And it's not even about motivation. I don't really trust motivation. Motivation is like a credit card to me. I've never gotten very far without with motivation, because you'll see and you'll hear a lot of these dudes, if they're not fit, or they're not watching what they eat, or they're not, doing certain things, they're going to, or if they are doing certain things that they know are not going to help them proclaim their own throne so to speak. If they're doing these certain things and they know that it's wrong for where they want to be going, they're basically on a timeline loop. They're just on a timeline loop, continuing forth into the abyss, staring at the void. And they're not even staring at the void with a full sack. They're just staring at the void. How dull. Now look, there's really something to be said for the Tao. Okay, if you've ever read the Tao Te Ching, then you'll know, like, I posted about this in the Regal Academy just a few days ago about the Tao Te Ching. Chapter 22 refers to a lot of how everything works out in your favor. Everything's always working out for you. It's very contradictory on how you do that, and it's very counterintuitive, seemingly so, but it's actually not. It's really not. It's just more of like the paradox of life. Life in of itself is a paradox. And the more that you can learn how to operate within the paradox, it's like Inception. Remember in Inception when they make like the everlasting stairs and they just, the never-ending staircase, and in the dream they can just keep walking up the stairs, up the stairs, up the stairs, until they realize that it's a dream, and then they expose the paradox, right? So you have to learn how to operate in the dream that is the matrix, the simulation, the construct, and being able to step out of the dream when you're awakened enough to see that it's a dream. But if the paradox is working for you to get to where you need to go in the spirit of the time, then go full-fledged, straight ahead. Why wouldn't you do that? Why would you? This is what I think is so hilarious, is people who are anxious and depressed and apathetic try to tell me, a man who's trying to build something, who has been commanded by the soul of existence to express itself in a certain way. They're trying to tell me how I should be living my life when they themselves don't even want a life that I would want. So you have to ask yourself, how often is this happening in your life? And maybe, just maybe, if you have a full sack, could you get on the right path for you? Because the right path doesn't really exist, but the right path for you does. It's a paradox. But with that being said, I trust this message reach those that are ready to receive it. Apply to the Godlike Mastery offer or join the Regal Academy. I do have a lot of different things going on with the Regal Academy right now. I'm very pleased to say that the Art of Seduction class will be ending on September 6th. I have a new class coming in after that. I have been updating the 48 Laws of Power class consistently. And right now with the Godlike Mastery offer, I have one spot left open for August, and I'm going to have 2 spots open for September. So look, right now, in the spirit of the time, you have basically 4 months left of the year. So all of those goals that you set at the very beginning of the year, look back and see how many of those did you actually achieve. If you're looking for a godlike transformation to decrease the self-sabotage, optimize pattern recognition, amongst other things, now's the time to join. Now's the time to take a commitment and investment on yourself, because you have to be able to invest in yourself to have the soul of existence invest into you. Peace be with you. Be blessed. Until next time.